Hey guys, so today we are going to continue on with our look into Premiere. We're going to learn about importing both photos and videos, and we're going to see if we can create a short little snippet that involves a couple layers of photos laid on top of video. So we'll just create a new project in Premiere, just skip past all the tutorials as they show up, and we'll just call this importing videos and photos in Premiere, in Adobe Premiere Pro, or something shorter if you want, but just make sure you name it something sort of unique so you don't have a bunch of untitles, because the naming conventions here basically just replace any project if it has the same name. So we'll just press enter there, press OK. While that loads, I'll just kind of show you what we've got over here. We've got several photos and images, some photos, some images here. I think we've got a couple repeats we'll address in a bit. But essentially, what you want is you want to make sure you have these all downloaded into somewhere other than your downloads folder. If you were to say go to your settings, if you're using Chrome and scroll down to advanced, and find your downloads, it would tell you where your downloads go. Now on my computer, my downloads go straight to my downloads folder. Luckily for me, I'm using my personal computer, and so this I can access this. But if yours goes to your downloads, you want to change that. So change that, and you can change it to, for instance, videos, and press OK, and then it'll go to your videos instead. And if it doesn't have this little tick that says "Ask where to save each file before downloading," go ahead and tick that too, and that would be there. So in this case, I'm just putting this up too. All right, so that's essentially what's the first step. So download these images and this video here to your computer, and then when you open up Premiere, you'll be able to import them. Here's hoping. You also have an error log sheet that you're going to use to describe any errors you encounter. Just make sure that you kind of write down the text, or at least the gist of what it's saying, even if you don't quite understand it, because we can report that on to our IT people, and they can get on that and maybe hopefully fix that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just import media to start. Once again, there's several ways you can import things. You can take your image. I'll just do one at a time here. You can take your image, you can drag it in, and it'll import. You can take your mouse and just click inside this little import bay here. Just double click on that. You can find your videos. I have mine saved in this project folder here called importing videos and photos. If your computer is doing a good job of unzipping programs, that's fantastic. Unzipping files, that's great. If not, then download them one at a time and just make sure they all go to the same spot. So I can just download this here. Once again, I double clicked on the little import bay there. The rest of the time, what I can do is you can press File, you can press Import, and you can import that way. And if you don't want to click anything with the mouse, you can just hold down the Control key and tap the letter I, and you can import the rest this way. So let's see what I got. I got the drawing, and so I'll just select everything else and just press Open. And when you select several things, the bit of this file is unsupported. Okay, yeah. So we'll just have a. If you encounter that error, then you could just hopefully we'll have a different image. So hopefully one that will appear in Premiere. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is put down our video as a base. So this little video of me jibber-jabbing, we'll put that in there. So just click and drag it into the import bay, and we can play this a little bit here. And I'm going to mute my computer so it doesn't have an echo. And what I'll do is I'll just play up until.
Let's see here. All right. Well, hey, it's me, Mr. Lobello, and I'm here.
Just, scoot your head. Now, when you scrub forward, sometimes you'll hear a bit of a sort of garbled version of it. Alright, so let's see if I can find the spot. What you can do with this is you can look at this timeline here. There's a little bar down at the bottom that you can use to scroll back and forth to view, I would say. So in this case, right now, we basically have the entire timeline is visible, and let's say 80% of the entire video clip is visible. If I want to see the entire video clip in the same little spot, I would just grab this one little circle at the end of this bar, and I would just stretch it out towards the left, or the right rather, and this right here is still the same length, but it just takes up less space. So you'll see the little line here move a lot faster.
Give myself a little bit of a moment to stop, and then I'll start, and you'll see why in a second.
Okay. So you notice where I stopped here. I stopped this playback at around 34 seconds and 15 frames, right? So this right here, we've got the playhead position will tell us precisely where we're at, and then over here we've got the entire length of the duration of our video that we could export here. It goes in hours, minutes, seconds, and then frames. Now, in this case, our frame rate is, I think, is 24 frames per second. So if I were to just press forward, or rather, in this case, press the right arrow key, I could keep pressing forward until I hit 24, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so it's 30 frames per second. So if you hit 29, it's going to turn to 35 right here. You see that? I'm here at 34. I'll just go ahead and 35. And what I'll do is I'll cut there. Now remember, if we cut, we want to use this little razor tool here, or press C on the keyboard, and we just line it up with the little timeline marker here, and we can just click once, and it'll separate this into two different clips. And I'm just going to click on this opening part here, and I'm just going to delete. And what you can do then is right-click on the space between the beginning of the timeline and our clip, and just select Ripple Delete, and it'll bring everything to the beginning here. So essentially what we want to do is we want to make sure that as we hear me speak about myself, you're going to want to grab the picture that corresponds to what I'm talking about and place it in there. Now I talk kind of fast because I'm weird like that, and so it'll go kind of quick. Some will last longer than others, and we'll talk about how precisely we fit that in. So let's just listen to what I have to say first here, and hopefully this won't go too terribly badly.
My favorite movie, I think, is the movie called Children of Men.
All right, I'll pause that right there. So I'm going to back this up right before I say Children of Men. You can hear yourself speak, or you can hear me speak if you back up a little bit. Alright, so I hear that little CH sound, so that tells me that I'm about to say the word children. So I'm going to find this poster over here, this movie poster of Children of Men, and I'm just going to drag this out and line this up. You see we have different video tracks. We have V1 for video 1, 2, and 3. So I'm just going to pop this right here on video 2. Now, obviously, when you pop this in here, it's gigantic compared to the width of the screen. So I'm just going to click on this little pink marker here that represents the poster Children of Men. And I'm going to go over here to the top left-hand side and click on Effect Controls. And I'm going to find these various these things here. We have position, we have scale, rotation, anchor point, all these things we'll talk about what they all mean in a second. But the first thing we're going to look at is scale. If you don't know what scale means the size. So I'm just going to, I have two options. I can just, I can click and drag to the left to make it smaller, to the right to make it bigger. I can just click once and I can put in a number like, say, 50%. I can put maybe in this case 20%. Maybe in this case I'll choose 15%. So I'm going to choose 15% here. Now above we have position. So we've got the X position. So once again, if we drag that to the right or the left here, it goes to the left. If we drag to the right, it goes to the right. Same thing with the next button. We have the Y position. We have the, we can make it go down, we can make it go up. If you want to keep it in the center, you can just keep it that way. So I'm going to leave that right there in the center. Now I'm going to listen to myself speak. Again, this is going to echo a little bit, so my apologies for that.
Children of Men, which is a movie about a dystopian future where, for whatever reason, people can no longer have babies. Right? It's starring Clive Owen, and it's directed by Alfonso Cuarón. It's a really good film. I should check it out.
All right, so I'll pause there because I got done talking. So I'm going to extend this clip here, this image. I'm going to make this last until I get done talking about it. So I'm just going to hover my mouse over the end here. Now, if you still have the razor tool selected, you can choose the selection tool, or just press V on the keyboard, and we'll hover over the end of this clip, and we'll just drag this towards the end of the timeline there. That way, it still is talking about it. We still see the poster.
It's a really good film. I should check it out. My favorite book, my favorite series is The Lord of the Rings. Out of the sort of parts, by the central novel, The Two Towers.
All right, so I'll say the Two Towers here. So I mentioned The Two Towers. It's my favorite book. So I'm going to back this up until I hear I'm going to see myself forming the word two. So let's here. We'll just hold it down here. Alright, so I hear the little sound. Now again, I was talking kind of fast. I was kind of mumbling a little bit. So, this will just pop up right when I say that. So if you didn't quite catch that, I am at 26 seconds in. And remember, this is 26 seconds in after we have removed that earlier scene of me just kind of speaking about what this video is. Now, another way of adjusting the scale, so once again, we want to make sure we've clicked on the pink tab that represents this this image here. So in this case, all we see is Legolas's, amazingly, Vidal Sassoon coif here. So you want to shrink this down until we can see the entire thing. I can just double click this on the screen on the little preview here, and I can grasp these little anchor points, and it automatically locks the ratio from width to height. And I can just kind of put that right about here. In this case, I got 33.22. I'll just put it down. I'll just go over here and I'll just make sure I have a round number here. I'll just put 32. So you can choose 32 if you want to make it a little bit bigger. That's fine. Now, what's neat about Premiere is that it's all on a grid here. We've got 1,920 pixels going across. We've got 1,080 pixels going up and down for this HD film, this HD video that I recorded on my webcam here. But if I want to put it in the exact same spot, I can put the center of this in the exact same spot by, as the previous video, by clicking on the previous video and looking at the position here. In fact, the position here was x point 123 and then y coordinates of 180. So I'll just click back over here and I'll put the same thing. I'll have 1, 2, 3 right there. And so if we were to maybe click over here, we could see each other men. Click over here, we could see two towers, right? So this is essentially the same spot. Now they take up a different amount of space because they have different sort of aspect ratios to them. But that's okay. So I'll just continue on here.
Hard for.
Let's back it up here.
Soft spot.
All right. So I started talking about the TV show Lost before the 5 seconds was up. So I'm just gonna go through here until I stop talking about that. Which I think is right about there. So I can just back this up here, and this will last about 2 seconds. So right now I'm about 28 seconds in. So I'm just going to take this, I'm just going to hover over the end of this pink tab, and I'm just going to drag it back until it hits the timeline there. So we can just listen to how that sounds.
Novel, The Two Towers is my favorite novel. As far as TV shows go, I have a soft spot in my heart for the TV show Lost.
Alright, so I'll back that up until I actually hear the L form, so I don't have it I'll have it appear right when I say it. So I'm just going to back this up by pressing the left arrow key. So I see myself forming that L sound, so I'll bring this out, this little Lost logo here, and I'll just put that right there on video 2. And once again, I'm just going to click this, and I'm just going to pull the scale down until it meets, just until it fits inside this little area over here. Now, this is going to be a good deal smaller, so 15%, 14%. Let's see how this goes. I'll just go ahead and drag it over, and I'll just click 1, 2, 3 like we had before. And we may not want 1, 2, 3 since it's sort of a different aspect ratio here, so if I were to make this a bit bigger, let's see if we can scale this up slightly. I want to give this a little bit of space between the end of the frame. And I want it to be somewhat even between the end of the frame and my arm here, so I'm just going to drag this back slightly here. I have mine at 141, so if you see something that looks a little bit better, that's obviously fine. It's in the center of the frame. Now the word Lost here is off-center from the picture itself, which is sort of intentional of the show. But if you want to adjust that to where it looks better for you, that's fine. If you want to put it up in the corner here, maybe it might look better in the corner. I'll just drag this up, to like the top here. Yeah, I like it better in the middle there, so I'll just keep it there. All right, so let's see how long I talk about Lost.
Lost from 2004, which we watched a clip of in class. It had a middling to disappointing ending, but it was still a good, well-executed show, and had a lot of really good moments.
All right, so that's where I stopped talking about Lost, so I'll just once again hover over this, and I'll just drag this forward until it meets the timeline marker, and let's keep listening.
My favorite album, I think, is Pink Floyd The Wall.
All right, so I'll just put Pink Floyd The Wall here, and I'll just put that right there, and I'll let me just scale this down slightly. I'll just click on the Pink Floyd The Wall tab, and I'll just scale this down, and I'll just click 1, 2, 3, and I'll set this down some more. I move it over just slightly, just because it's square. There we go. And I talked briefly about a CCR album, but I'll just ignore that for now, and I'll just bring back
or perhaps the sort of greatest hits by Creedence Clearwater Revival. Pink Floyd's The Wall was the one tape I had in my truck. My truck had a tape deck when I was in high school in the year 2000, and so I would listen to that tape over and over. And it was a recorded tape that I'd copied from my older sister. She got the tape from a yard sale back in '98.
So let's hover over this and slide this over here. It's going to be one of the longer clips that we've got so far. So we have
from a yard sale back in '98. My favorite Actor, I think, is a tie between Gary Oldman and Christopher Walken.
So we don't have a Gary Oldman picture in this video, but if you have a Gary Oldman picture that you can use in that little box, then by all means put it in there. But I'll just put Christopher Walken right about here, and Christopher Walken. Oh, hello. Well, that's lovely. What we'll do is we'll just scale this down, and we'll slide him over to the side here, to where we can sort of put him right in the middle here. This is 146 exposition here, and I'll just back this up slightly so. Back a little bit, and we can just sort of slide this right here. So with anything, if anything goes wrong, if you do something wrong, you can always press Control Z to put that back to where it was. So let's just listen to how long I talk about Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken, and I.
Okay, I'll just slide this all the way here because I only talked about him for like half a second.
I really enjoy kayaking.
So let me just go over here. We've got two pictures of kayaking. You could choose either this beautiful stock footage, the stock photo that I found, or you can choose this beautiful photo that my buddy Alex took of me kayaking. I'll just use this one here. I'll just click on the image. Once again, shrink it down a good deal. I'll slide it over the side. And we'll play it on. So I'll say, let's click it here. So I'm saying enjoy. Sound, a little friction cuss sound. We can pull this back here, so I say the word kayaking, then I move on.
Kayaking, I like lifting weights.
Alright, so then I'll just put this back here until we talk about lifting weights, and we can put in this cringy gym selfie that I have of me lifting weights, and we'll just shrink that down too. Once again, we'll just put this down to like 15%, maybe more like 30%, maybe 45. That's good. Once again, 1, 2, 3. Smaller, and maybe 141. Okay, so let's say
lifting weights,
and I'll just set this back here. Lifting weights.
I like to draw.
Alright, and then draw, and so we have the sketch I did. So I'll just put this little sketch here. Slide this out here. If you want to get really close in, once again, you can shrink this down by pulling the circle closer to each other, so you can kind of see what you're doing here. Then I'll scroll up here and I'll grab the right there. Oh, hello, it's too big. Here, and we'll just slide this down to like say 50%, 25%, 15%, 10%. All right, that's good. And we'll slide over here.
To draw, and of course I like to teach.
Now, let's see how they all look side by side. I'm just going to run through these three back here and see if they start to move back and forth. If they move back and forth, it'll be kind of distracting. We don't want them to move, too terribly far away.
Kayaking, I like lifting weights, I like to draw.
All right, that seems okay. They don't really move too terribly far away from each other. Look over here. This is about the same spot in terms of relation to the others. And so is this. Looks good. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll cut the rest of the video off by...
And of course I like to teach.
Alright, right there as I'm kind of, gormlessly grinning at the camera, I'll just click here, and I'll just clip that, and we'll just click this, make sure we hit the actual select button, and we'll just press delete. And so now we have a 1 and 20-second video. Hopefully that'll export well, and we can watch it. Before we do that, let's go over here to the beginning, and let's add a title to it. So we'll put this little T button here. And I want you to put in the corner here your name, and we'll just say like Mr. Modello's importing video project. And let's see if we can't select all this, and we can shrink it down to say, let's see here, we'll just pull it down from 100% to say 49%. I'm using, in this case, I'll change it from Mistral to, say, for instance. Again, all the computers tend to have different fonts installed on them because we were able to install fonts last year. So you might have a font that you like that you don't see here. This might not be on yours. This is called No Movement. But so we'll just put that in there, and we'll add a fade. So we'll go over here to our effects choices here, and we'll click over here to Project Browser. We'll find effects, video transitions. We'll find. You can choose one of these, but I'm going to choose dissolve. I'm going to choose cross dissolve, which will just make it disappear to nothing, and I'll just sort of like appear here.
My favorite.
Right, and then I'll do the same thing for the video itself. I'll pull a cross dissolve on the video itself, so it'll fade in from black because there's a moment of like transition here, and then I'll do the same thing at the very end. Let me extend this out, and I'll just put this cross dissolve right here at the end, right there, and so we can sort of see this zoom in, fade in.
My favorite.
And then we can see it zoom out here.
It's like to draw, and of course, I like to teach.
All right, so there you go. All right, so that's a good. So once again, sort of 80-second video. Let's go to File. Let's go to Export. Let's click Media, or you can just press Control M, and we can choose the various things. All the ins and outs of these sequences don't matter, but if necessarily matter. But if you click on your encoding and you find H.264, that's a good sort of. It's the MT4 what we'll call moving pictures. Shall we say, standard of video. So a lot of movies are compressed to MP4. It's a good compression, so it's not a very big file. AVI is often used for DVD burning. Obviously, JPEG is an image. You can export the audio if you want to do some audio editing. QuickTime movies, all these different things are all very. So we'll discuss what the benefits are of each of these things. I'm also going to choose. Instead of match source high bitrate, I'm going to click here, I'm going to choose medium bitrate, and that's going to reduce the file size substantially. So do that as well. And if you click on output name, don't just save it, just make sure that you click on it so you know where it's going to go. In this case, it opens up to the last place you saved. You might get a little alarm that says you can't save here because it's opening up to your downloads or something else. But don't worry about that. Just go back to your videos, find your importing videos projects, and say importing video, and then put your last name, and just press enter, and then press export, and hopefully this will export in a matter of moments. You can hopefully export then. So once you have until Friday to do this, and we'll continue on working with Premiere, and hopefully you'll be able to make one of your own of these little basic vlogger, all about me videos where you can talk about your favorite video games or your favorite, Fortnite dance or whatever you kids are into. Okay, let's see how this exports, and we'll see if we can't watch the video itself, and hopefully we can. So let's say here, importing video, for that.
My favorite movie, I think, is the movie called Children of Men, which is a movie about a dystopian future where, for whatever reason, people can no longer have babies. Right? It's starring Clive Owen, and it's directed by Alfonso Cuarón. It's a really good film. I should check it out. My favorite book, my favorite series is Lord of the Rings. Out of the sort of parts, by the central novel, The Two Towers, is my favorite novel. As far as TV shows go, I have a soft spot in my heart for the TV show Lost from 2000.
So that's good, and I have no reason to believe that it doesn't match up. But do watch your film. Make sure that you don't have any frames of black. Make sure that you don't have any odd little spots that shouldn't be there. Make sure that your name is spelled right, and that all the words in your little title here is spelled right. Simple mistakes that you can make to lose points. Make sure you avoid those. All right, very cool. Well, we will love to see what you guys produce, and I will see you in class.